Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Today's podcast is brought to you by Thinkific. Thinkific is the #1 platform to create, market, and sell your own online courses or membership sites. They have revolutionized how individuals earn and learn online by building an all-in-one platform designed for both course creators and their audience. Try Thinkific for free today at try.thinkific.com/JenGlantz. That's try.thinkific.com/JenGlantz. You are going to love it. Hey, any youngers, it's me, your host, Jen Glantz, back with another episode of the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. What's up? What is going on, my friends? I'm feeling good. You know, I have this weird relationship with New York City where one week I will absolutely dread being here and fall so out of love with it and look for places to live anywhere else, including Mars. And then the next week I find myself madly in love with it. And the problem is I'm being so vocal about this because a new thing about me is that I'm really trying hard that when I feel something, I tell people around me. So I've been telling my friends openly and honestly how I'm feeling. Like I came back from Florida a couple months ago and I was telling them that I just feel so empty here and I feel like maybe I shouldn't be here anymore. And they would stop me when I saw them in the street and ask me how I was. And it was so nice and they were so caring. And then the next week I'm like practically twirling and dancing around the park, just so happy to be in New York City. So I think maybe it has to do with weather, of course, but also just like things are opening up a little bit in New York City and I'm feeling like I'm getting part of my life back that I lost in the pandemic. Like so many of you, I've been taking more solo adventures in Manhattan, just walking around aimlessly, and I've been going to Broadway shows and I've been treating myself to dinner and I've just been doing things that made me Jen in New York City before the pandemic. And I think the pandemic stripped us all of so much, of our identity, of our habits, of our hobbies, of our routines, and building all of that back is so freaking hard. It's so hard, and I hope that you know that, and I hope when you find yourself in a moment, even if it's such a tiny moment, where you feel like you again, that you just cherish that you just let yourself really embrace that, because I'm sure, my friend, it's been a while since you felt that. And you deserve to feel good in that moment. A couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine that I met on Instagram, Bree, we've been hanging out and she invited me to go to this art gallery event. Neither of us know anything about art, so we sort of went because we thought it would be interesting and funny and cool, and it was so awesome. I mean, I've never been to an art gallery party or anything like that in my 10 years of being in New York, but we just had so much fun going to this art gallery. It was in the High Line, in like a building underneath the High Line, and there was 9 different exhibits there, and it was so cool. Like I first walked in there with such a negative attitude. I was like, Brie, I don't understand art. Like I could paint that on the wall. And then the cool part about this exhibit is that the actual artist was there describing the art and the stories behind it, and everything changes when you know the story behind it, just like people do. Everyone changes in your eyes and how you perceive them when you know their truth and you know their story, and that's the same thing with art. So we went to this art gallery and they had one of those walls where you could write anything you want on the wall. And I was reading all the inspirational things that popped out of people's brains and onto the white surface. Things like be the change or today is your day. And of course, some people wrote their Instagram handles, which I'm so guilty of doing before. And then one person wrote the most cliche thing I've ever heard. They wrote, "The only way out is through." And I couldn't stop staring at it. I literally could not take my eyes off of it. And for some reason, like my body just gravitated closer and closer and closer to the wall as if I could hug those words. And my arms wanted to wrap themselves around the spot on the wall as if it was a friend I hadn't seen forever. The truth is, oddly, it felt familiar. That's because a couple of years ago, I survived something really tough. And when I tell people about it and they ask me, how, Jen, how did you keep going on? The only way I can sum it all up is that the only way out was through. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't run back. I couldn't erase the situation. I had to get through it. I had no other choice. And of course, all of the in-between parts of the story feel like you're crawling inside of some kaleidoscope. I mean, everything is swirling when you're inside of misery and you're just trying to look ahead, but nothing ever makes sense until you're through it. I'm through it now, I'm out, and I could look back and I could see how the twists bent me backwards and the strange shapes I felt stuck in taught me how to be stronger in a world that'll never, ever stop punching you in the gut. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're not through it. Maybe you're truly trudging forward and it doesn't feel like you're ever gonna get out. But my friend, the only way out is through, and you can't see that yet. So even if you can't see that yet, also know this: you might be halfway out and you don't even know it. Keep walking. Because what if it's not just one big giant cliche? What if the only way out is through? What if it is true and you don't even know it yet? All my love, Jen Glantz. Hey you! Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.